Welcome to Table Talk here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. Great to be in your ears if you are watching on YouTube. Hello out there. We got a great Table Talk discussion coming your way this week as we are with one of our good friends from the Locked On Eagles podcast. I have been listening to his voice for so many years, and especially as we are in the midst of this coming NFL, we're in the midst of the NFL draft season, but the draft is going to be here before we know it. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to be on the clock before we know it. Lots of draft picks that we're probably going to end up seeing, but we've got the one and only Lou DiBiase from the Locked On Eagles podcast. Buddy, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I love coming on. We got video now, so this is great. I like to show off the studio, so I'm a big fan of video.
Your studio is fantastic. Look, I'm actually wearing my Merrill shirt from when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame right here. I don't know if folks can see it.
That's the thing, too. I have so many like random Eagles clothing and hats that I got to show off, so I love video form now.
I love your corner back there, and you have so many fantastic newspapers that have been framed just with regard to the Eagles, monumental occasions, and this
Jeff, it's just a way that I hoard my Eagles stuff, and it's just a way to organize it in a seem like a less freaky way.
Absolutely. Well, really quick, before we get into the draft, some folks who may be new to listening or watching us on YouTube, I wanted to show everybody where they can actually follow us here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter/X. I am over at TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. We've got our Facebook page. We're on Threads, Blue Sky, just about all social media sites, folks. Give us a follow out there. And Lou, where can folks follow you on the interwebs out there? Because you do fantastic work, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And we do YouTube every single day, Monday through Friday. We have a daily podcast you can find on all audio platforms on YouTube, posting on the YouTube community page, shorts, on X as well, at LockdownBirds, at DiBiase LOE, trying to be everywhere. I'm trying to get on TikTok as well, Jeff. So that's my next pilgrimage, I would say.
There you go. It's fun. It's fun to say the
least. I'll get there.
All right. Well, Lou, as we've talked about on our podcast platform, you know, I know you've been getting into it to a certain extent over Locked On Eagles as well as we're heading into this NFL draft. I really don't feel that much anxiety about what Howie Roseman and the Eagles front office may do throughout this draft. I don't know if it's still coming off the Super Bowl win or the fact that this is a young Eagles team who is slated to be relevant for the next few years. It really does feel like Howie is playing with house money heading into this draft. Are you thinking the same thing? And how do you think us Eagles fans really should be looking at this upcoming draft from an overall perspective?
Yeah, no, I'm actually with you, and I was stressed last year because I was adamant about them. They need to draft a cornerback. I will not be happy until they do it. No more trenches. Right. I get it. Do that 90% of the time. Take 1 year to take a corner. So I was stressed last year. Then Howie got Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell back-to-back, of course, in the reverse order there. I was happy. This year, they did that for me. They have a complete roster for the short term and for the long term as well. I made the point on my show that this is the most unpredictable draft for the Eagles since I'd say 2018, post Super Bowl 52, but that was because the roster was so complete from a short-term perspective that year. This year, it's like they have needs filled for this season and for beyond, and especially now that the Cam Jurgens extension is done, their entire offense is locked up basically through 2027, so they can kind of do whatever they want this year, and I'm fine with it. If they took a tight end or a safety, I'm cool with it. If they go with the trenches, they have the optionality and the flexibility because Howie's done such a good job over the last 4 drafts and free agency of hitting on sustainable pieces that
it's a great word.
They don't have to force anything.
The flexibility is a great word that you use there, Lou. And I think when you were using that word flexibility, it really generates just these positive vibes about where the organization and this team is going in the future, offensively and defensively too. The flexibility, I think, is so key for where they want to go down the road.
That's the thing, too, is it's not just – I feel like at times the offense always had sustainable long-term core pieces, but it was at the expense of the defense. Now they have one of the youngest defenses in football as well with legitimate pieces that'll eventually get extensions. So there isn't a clear hole. I think safety might be the closest to that, but there is a piece at every spot that you at least have some hope for with Sidney Brown and even at corner with Keely Ringo opposite Quinyon and Coop, Jalix Hunt on the edge, Moro Ijoma on the inside. yeah, they could maybe try to upgrade through the draft, but they have a piece they have shown a lot of promise over the years in at pretty much every spot. So yeah, and it's probably the Super Bowl win. You're right too. I think 2 rings in 8 years where you beat the NFL's equivalent of Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes has your cup feeling pretty filled as well.
Right, absolutely. Well, look, many of us are thinking as we're looking at this draft that the Eagles are probably going to try to bolster themselves through the trenches on both on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. I think especially from a defensive line perspective, given the fact that they lost some talent during this offseason, Lou, and based on some of the tweets that I've read from you, my friend, I know that you love James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. I love the guy too, but if he is not there, interior defensive line and that talent is also, I think, going to be important to continuing that, quote, build within the trenches mentality. Do you think D-line is where the Eagles are really going to go with that number 32 overall pick or their first pick, whenever that's going to be?
I think so. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's any position that we hear on Thursday night. Right. But if I was a betting man, and I am sometimes, I would go with the trenches, whether it's an edge rusher or a pass rushing defensive tackle like a Walter Nolan from Ole Miss or a Derek Harmon from Oregon. I could see them going there because not only is it a need. Again, Moro Ijoma is somebody that I like. Same with Jalix Hunt. But Howie Roseman likes to have many options in the trenches, especially after losing Milton Williams. They want to replace him with a pass rusher. So I think that's the way to go. Plus, it's the strength of this class. I think the most depth. If there's a chance of somebody falling down the board to 32 or even in the form of a small trade-up, I think it's for a pass rusher, whether it is Walter Nolan or James Pierce or, I don't know, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, Mikael Williams. There's so many guys this year that I think there is a chance that somebody slips down the board and you can go up and get that player. They could take the offensive linemen that are in this class, tight end, safety, but I just think based on the depth of the class, the strength of the top of it, and the need, short-term and long-term, that pass rusher probably makes the most sense.
Absolutely. It's interesting how you did mention the tight end. I would tell folks to go back into the podcast feed or here on our YouTube channel. We spoke to Matt Waldman from the Rookie Scouting Portfolio this past week, really talked about the tight end position in a lot of depth. So folks, go back and listen to that. It was a great, great conversation. But I wanted to move along our conversation here, Lou, with the secondary, because the secondary is what I'm going to be really interested in seeing where the Eagles potentially go in this draft, whether it's cornerback, safety. The Eagles are going to need to start addressing both positions, in my opinion. I mean, of course, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean last year, first pick and second picks of last year's draft. But the depth behind them, I mean, you were mentioning Keely Ringo as well as one of those possible up-and-comers. It's, I don't know, I have this bizarre concern that may not be valid about where the depth of the defensive backfield really is going to be going. So what are your thoughts on how the Eagles are going to handle the defensive backs in this draft based on the current depth chart and how that looks?
I think it's a valid concern. You lost not just Darius Slay, but Isaiah Rodgers and Avonte Maddox. You lost 3 pieces that played a lot of football for you last year and over the years. So they could use more depth. I think they're banking on Keely Ringo taking that step, Adoree Jackson still being something at the next level after signing him.
Not sure what he's going to be, but
yeah, I mean, exactly. Maybe you get something left from him. Eli Ricks, maybe. I mean, he showed some promise in 2023, but they definitely have to add a corner in this class, and I would like him to have slot versatility too, because without Avonte Maddox, who's your nickel backup to Cooper DeJean? So I would like to add a corner. As much as I love corners, though, I think early on in the draft, unless the board is just a disaster and corner is by far the best player available, like a Trey Amos or a Maxwell Harrison, I don't think it's a smart use of a resource to get another corner early on when you know there's 2 guys already on the same kind of timeline from a contract perspective in Cooper and Quinyon that you're going to give an extension to. So taking somebody in the first round that I almost know isn't getting a second contract on my team, I don't love that idea. Again, if the board's a disaster and you can't trade down, okay. But for me, the focus is more on safety because Sidney Brown, I think ideally is more of a third safety, a rotating player in dime packages. If a Malachi Starks fell down the board or a Nick Emenwari, I kind of like the idea of even moving up for one of those guys. So I think safety is, after losing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, is the bigger focus than corner. I think they should definitely add a safety in the first 3 rounds.
I have had a number of back and forth with some folks on social media, various platforms, talking about Sidney Brown, quite frankly, Lou, and folks saying he really hasn't had that chance. And of course, he hasn't been a long-term starter. However, we have seen him on the field, and we've seen him do some good things, but he's also been detrimental out there as well in certain game
he plays like a crazy
situations.
person.
Exactly. So I don't know. What's your response to that narrative of, okay, we don't necessarily know who Sidney Brown is? I'm not sure about that at this point. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played a lot because of the injury, of course, which kept him out for some of last year. Yeah. But also, I'm a little concerned that even when he was healthy, Vic Fangio played Tristan McCullum over him when they were playing backup safety. So Sidney Brown, I love the traits. I love the range. He does have crazy hit power. I think if he can rein it in and improve his tackling, because the missed tackle rate last year was not good, Vic Fangio didn't trust him. If he can rein that in and develop those techniques and patience, the tackling angles this year, he does have a high ceiling. But I'm concerned that he might just always be that reckless kind of player, and I don't love the coverage ability of him one-on-one. So I think ideally, if that's your third guy coming in certain packages, that's really good. Again, he hasn't gotten a lot of playing time, and I like that the Eagles want to give him a chance as well as a lot of young players. That's how last year's defense got so good, is giving these young players a chance instead of bringing back veteran stopgaps. But for Sidney Brown, I don't know. I think there could be an upgrade through this draft. Or even bringing in like a Justin Simmons after the draft. I think Sid is ideally a third safety at this next level. We'll see, though. If he's got to definitely get more playing time to really know the full story.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great storyline to follow, when we're certainly going to be following heading into this draft and the rest of this offseason. But moving over to the offense now, I think the Eagles have an interesting running back room at this moment, of course, with Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, who's going to be going into his sophomore season, and the acquisition of A.J. Dillon during free agency. Lou, I'm wondering, when this NFL draft is all said and done, how do you think the Eagles running back room is going to look? Do you think it's going to be the same, or do you think Howie is going to add even more depth to the running back room and this particular position on offense? And do you like anybody, perhaps maybe a day 2, day 3 pick?
Yeah, I think they should bring in at least one more running back, and I think they will. I like A.J. Dillon. He was actually a suggestion for me last offseason if they weren't going the Saquon Barkley route and we're going to keep with the committee approach. Yeah. I thought I liked that size and power that he could bring to the table. I like that element this year, too, because Will Shipley is more of an undersized receiving type of back. If Saquon did get banged up, I don't want Will Shipley to be like the full-blown RB1. Right. So I like Dillon in that perspective, but the neck injury is concerning. This could end up being a Rashad Penny type of signing where he just doesn't play at all. So I think you got to bring in another body, and I hope it's with the power aspect to it. I want another guy with size. The Eagles met virtually with South Carolina running back Raheem Sanders, somebody that I really like. He's got that power aspect. You could probably get him in the 5th round. You've got, 3 or 4 picks in round 5. So I like that suggestion on day 3. This year, look, Saquon Barkley's not going to touch the football almost 400 times like he did last year. I just don't think a running back that age can realistically, even Saquon, who's a cyborg of a human being, I don't think realistically he can take on that historic workload 2 years in a row. So some of that relief will come through more passing, but I also think it should come through other running backs getting more touches. So I think you want to add more bodies, because I don't know if A.J. Dillon or Will Shipley you should really bank on to be that RB2 that has a bigger workload than like a Kenneth Gainwell did in 2024.
Again, folks, we're talking to Lou DiBiase from the Locked on Eagles podcast. I subscribe on Apple Podcasts, also subscribe on YouTube as well. Great content every day. And as we're moving along with the conversation here, Lou, I feel like if you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on your team, you really don't need that many more receiving hands. But I have a feeling the Eagles are going to look to possibly draft another wide receiver, as Anaya Smith and Johnny Wilson, who were drafted last year in 2024, really didn't break through too much. I know Johnny Wilson had 1 touchdown this year, but I know he had less than 50 yards receiving. What are your thoughts about the Eagles possibly drafting a wide receiver to possibly even compete with Jahan Dotson for that number 3 wide receiver role, or to even add another depth piece?
I could totally see it. And it's not just from a receiver perspective of they need to bring in competition without Britton Covey here. And now it's just Johnny Wilson and Nia Smith behind your top three. But Dotson's only under contract for one more year. They have the fifth-year option idea, or option, I should say, fifth-year option. They are not going to use that on Dotson. So outside of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, you only really have those two under contract beyond this season as pass catchers. With Dallas Goedert also probably not coming back this year, and if he does, it's on a one-year rental. So, yeah, I think they got to bring in a pass catcher, whether it's a tight end or receiver, and maybe they think, hey, the third guy in this passing offense now is not going to be a tight end. Maybe they go tight end by committee and say it's Dotson or another early pick that we bring in to be that Goedert replacement. So keep an eye out for receiver. I'm not predicting receiver is going to go early, but if you told me they took a pass catcher that's wide receiver in the first 3 rounds and not a tight end, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not predicting it, but I think they just need to add a third passing option in this draft, or at least somebody that has that potential long term, because Dotson and Goedert are not here to stay, I don't think.
Yeah, as do I. I think it's going to happen. And again, it feels like Howie and the front office are playing with house money here. They're going to be able to make a lot of various moves, and nothing is really going to shock me. So,
yeah, Jeff, what if like a Matthew Golden fell to 32?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, could you imagine? I would like to add a deep threat, and obviously Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown have explosive ability. They can make plays down the field. We saw it with the dagger play in the Super Bowl. But I mean like a niche, like deep threat specialist, a better version of a Quez Watkins. I want to take a chance on a guy like that again that has that kind of like sub 4.3 speed as a niche role for this unit.
Absolutely. And Lou, before I let you go, buddy, finally, I think we're all waiting to see whether the Eagles will end up trading Dallas Goedert. It's a storyline that a lot of us fans are talking about right now. Possibly, who knows, maybe they'll trade him to move up in the first round of this draft, possibly to gain some draft assets or even to acquire a pass rusher. Who knows? I mean, Goedert was drafted all the way back in 2018. It's hard to believe that he's been here for so many years.
I know.
How do you think this all plays out? And if they do end up trading him, I mean, what the heck are they going to do with the tight end position? I mean, you kind of hinted at it a couple minutes ago here, but how do you think this all plays out?
They have a few options. They could look to, increase the workload of Jahan Dotson. I think it's a really deep tight end class. I think the most likely scenario is they draft somebody in round 2. LSU, although Mason Taylor from LSU might not even be available at that point, but like an Elijah Arroyo from Miami, a Harold Fannin from Bowling Green. I like Gunnar Helm as well from Texas, maybe more as a 3rd-round pick. I think a day 2 selection is going to be the most likely replacement for Goedert. I have said that if they can make it work, I want him back for 1 year. I think a rental season of Goedert in a championship window is more important than another day 3 pick when you have 1,000 of them in the next few years. But I just think both sides their feet are dug in. Like the Eagles want him to take a pay cut, and they're not going to extend him. And I think Goedert wants a pay raise, especially after the Trey McBride extension, coming off a really strong playoff run. Goedert was a huge reason you won the Super Bowl last year.
Yes.
I just don't think there's really a middle ground. I think they're due for a Hassan Reddick type of ending. I think the Eagles want him to take the Josh Sweat kind of pay cut last year, where it's a restructured 1-year deal. And I don't think Goedert wants to do that. And there's no guaranteed money left in his deal. So is he going to risk at 30 years old with his injury history playing on that deal this year? I doubt it. And so I think both sides just probably are looking to move on. And it stinks because I think the Eagles are going to be a worse team for it. I think they're better off with Dallas Goedert on this team, even if he misses 3 to 5 games next year. They're still a better team with him on the field.
Absolutely. And folks, I know that Lou has talked about the tight end position on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Just go back into the feed, check out the content on YouTube. Again, Locked On Eagles with Lou DiBiase. Buddy, tell everybody again where they can find you on the socials out there and on the interwebs.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jeff. So you can hit me up on X at DiBiase, LOE, at Locked On Birds, our show page. We're doing a daily podcast Monday through Friday, Locked On Eagles on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. But I love coming on the Philly Sports Table, man. I've been following it for a very long time, so
thanks,
I appreciate
buddy.
it. I always have fun coming on.
It's great having you on, and folks, that is going to do it for us this week on our Table Talk show. Make sure to share our video content and even our audio content on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other podcasting platforms with family and friends who are Philly sports fans. And that's going to do it for us this week. Take care, folks, and we'll catch you next time.